Welcome to Smokin with Sadie.
Sadie, what are we making today?
Red.
Do you like ribs? Welcome to Smokin' with Sadie, brought to you by Smokehouse USA. I'm Marty, and Sadie's missing. Thanks for watching our video. Who doesn't love a good rib? I've got 6 baby back ribs that I'm going to cook in this episode. So 3 to a package. One of the things I like buying the ribs from Costco is that typically they do not have a membrane on them. So that's the first thing you want to look for when you open your ribs is you want to flip them over and make sure that this membrane is gone. Most of the time you have to peel it, and it's fairly easy to do, but it's just one more step you've got to do. The next question you've got to ask yourself is to mustard or not to mustard. I don't mustard. I don't like it. It's messy. If you've got time, I like to let the moisture from the meat soak into the rub, and I think it adheres just fine. I'm actually rubbing these tonight. I'll put them in poly bags and stick them in my refrigerator overnight. And then tomorrow morning I'll fire up the smoker and we'll put the ribs on. And it's just a process that works really well for me. About 10 years ago, when we started a contest with one of my customers, we started using multiple spices on our ribs. We called it layering. And so we'll start with, this is a Smokin' Guns barbecue sweet heat. That'll be our first seasoning on. We'll follow that up with Simmer on Dock sweet rib rub to start giving it a sweet flavor. And then we'll finish it with Big Papa Smoker Sweet Money. And tomorrow when I put them in the smoker, I'll freshen them up a little bit with the Big Papa Smokers. So the contest that my customer started, I guess it was really 12 years ago. It was a really fun contest. It was a 3-day weekend. Brought judges in from all over for it. The money was fantastic. It was zero. It was bragging rights. There was first place and everybody else didn't win. It was a ton of fun, a ton of work. But over that 10-year span, our team won twice with this spice rub. I like to start seasoning from the bone side. I'm going to take my sweet heat. Then I'm going to follow that up with my Simmer on Docks. This one really has a nice red color to it. All right, now I'm going to give this a little bit of time after I put my Sweet Money on it. You can see the turbinado sugar in the Sweet Money, so you know it's going to be good and sweet. I'm going to let this one sit for a little bit while I do the other two, the backs of the other two. So here's where mustard would help because everything would stick a little better, but I've got time and there's some football on, so it's been 20 or 25 minutes now, and you can see that all of this rub is soaked in and not falling off. And now I'll season the other side, put them away till tomorrow. So once you've got your ribs in your poly bag, you tie the 4 corners together, you pick it up like your favorite 12-pack of whatever you're drinking, and you go put it in the fridge. That's the next morning. I've got my chimney full of newspaper. This morning I'm using briquettes. Fill it mostly full. Then I take my trusty torch. Give that 20 minutes or however long it takes, and we'll get the ribs rolling. I've got my ribs and a few other supplies out, and I'm going to re-season the tops of the ribs in the bag before I put them in the smoker because it's just a little less messy. So I put these ribs in the fridge last night about 9 o'clock, and I pulled them out at about 8 o'clock this morning. So again, I'm going to freshen them up using my Sweet Money. Just not super heavy, just a little bit on top. Knowing how your smoker cooks is really important for consistency from cook to cook. I know that this side is my hot side because I've got the heat coming in from the side, it comes up. So I look at my ribs, and this one's a pretty thick on this end, so she's gonna go right here. Looks pretty yummy. Just a safety note, remember this is really hot, so set it out of the way so nobody can run into it. So today I'm using hickory again. So we'll throw a couple of those on. 8:37, and we're smoking. Total time for this cook is gonna be 5.5 to 6 hours. I'm gonna smoke for 2 hours. I'm gonna foil for 2 hours. And then I'm gonna finish cooking out of the foil for another hour. But by the time you foil and unfoil and all that, it's gonna take 5 hours and 45 minutes. It's a process, but it's worth it in the end. All right, at a half hour in, I'm running about 204 degrees, shooting for about 235. So if I can keep it in that plus or minus 10 degrees of there, we'll be doing really good. Right now I'm putting in some bigger chunks of wood to try and help drive up my heat. A little bit later, we'll switch to smaller chunks. Now that the ribs are in the smoker, we need to start thinking about step 2, and that's when we foil. Now, a lot of people, when they foil, will use some brown sugar, maybe some apple juice, some honey, butter, or a squeezed parquet, or something like that. It's messy, takes a while to do. Temperature ribs come down. You know, I always talk about trying to save time. So I started kicking this around and thought, what if I take all of these ingredients, I put them in a pot and I make a liquid out of it so I can just brush it on. So I've never done it. I'm going to try it today. The other thing I'm going to do today is I am not going to use honey. I'm going to use maple syrup. Maple syrup that we make every spring. The other thing I like about the maple syrup is compared to the same serving size of honey, it has 24% less sugar. So I'm hoping I can keep the ribs from not turning as dark as my last batch. All right, so we're going to take 1/3 of a cup of brown sugar. I'm going to take 1/4 cup of apple juice. I'm going to take 1/8 of a cup of maple syrup and 2 tablespoons of butter, and we're going to melt it down. I'm going to use a medium heat. All right, so that's what the brown sugar, the maple syrup, the butter, and the apple juice looks like. I'll be able to get a much more uniform coating on the ribs while I foil them. And if you try this and you don't like it on your ribs, I guarantee you'll like it on your vanilla ice cream. It's been 2 hours. I'm gonna foil 2 ribs at a time so I can pull 2 out, close it to try and keep as much heat in as possible. I ended up making a second batch of the brown sugar, maple syrup, applesauce butter mixture. So the reason I foil it 2 hours instead of 3 is I think 3 hours just makes them fall off the bone too sloppy. So I like a little bit of a bite. They're still pretty tender when we're done, but I just like the 2 hours and 15 minutes range. So we're going to do the top side, and then I'll flip them over and do the bottom side, and then we'll put them back in the smokehouse meat side down. Cavity of the rib bones kind of holds this moisture in and gives you a little better steam cook. All right, so we're going to flip that one over. We're going to flip that one over. It's still messy, but not as messy. All right, I told you if I had any sauce left over, I was going to eat some ice cream. So I had some vanilla ice cream, and this might be a new rage. This is really good. So the ribs have been in the foil for 2 hours now. So it's time to take them out, see what they look like. There's the back side. Got some nice pullback on those ribs. It's the front side. They look pretty dang good. And same on this one, some nice pullback. Get them right back in. I always save my juice. When I reheat these, I'll use a little bit of that juice, and it works really well. All right, we've been in 20 minutes, getting ready to sauce. Got my sauce in here, my brush. I'm using the Blue Hogs Original, cut with just a little bit of apple juice to make it a little runnier and a little easier to put on. These look really good, all sauced up. All right, it's been 5.5 hours. Let's take a look. I added more smoke with a half hour to go, trying to get my heat up. Probably made the ribs a little darker than they should be, but nobody's going to complain. Here they are, all 6 of them. Maybe again, a little darker than I'd like them, but they look really good. They smell really good. I'm going to cut one here and try it. Of all the knives that I've got, the knife that I like the best for cutting my ribs with is this little bitty paring knife that has serrated edges on it. It just cuts really, really well. This is kind of like taking the middle slice out of the banana bread. You can see that, but we got a beautiful pink ring in there. Tastes really good. Flavors from the rub. You know, the theory is that you feel the heat and then the sweet comes through, and well, if I could tell that, I'd be tasting bourbon for a living. I just know whether I like it or I don't like it, and I like it. All right, so if I look at the overall process from having buying ribs that were membrane free to my new way of putting my brown sugar and butter and maple syrup and apple juice on for foiling to the overall flavor, I got to give it 2 thumbs up. These were really good ribs, and I think my friends who are going to eat them are really going to like them. Thanks for watching our video. Hopefully you pick something up that you can use next time you go to make some ribs. Got a few takeaways for you. The first is, if you can't find a membrane-free rib, make sure you peel the membrane. It'll eat much better for you. Second is, I use a 2-2-1 process, which is 2 hours of smoke, 2 hours in the foil, and a 1 hour finish. By the time you foil and unfoil, it's still about 6 hours. That's what I use. The third one is, when you go to add your brown sugar and your honey or maple syrup and your butter and your apple juice as you begin to foil, next time, take it and melt it down in a pot and make a paste out of it. And you can either brush it on or pour it on. And it's just, I found it to be much less messy. The fourth one is, when I unfoiled and I sauced, to keep my heat up, I had to continue burning chunks of wood. And I think that's part of what caused my ribs to get so dark. So I would recommend that you don't smoke after you've sauced. And finally, have fun, enjoy the process. What would you like to see us smoke next? Leave us a comment, like our video, subscribe to our channel. Until next time, may your coals be hot and your ribs be delicious.